Hello and welcome to Aristeia 99. Tonight we'll be looking at Miyamoto Musashi. So we're continuing on with the core characters from the Aristeia box sets. Today we'll be looking at Miyamoto Musashi. Let's get straight into the stats for him. He has a 6 initiative. He will beat most characters when it comes to deciding who will be active. This is a great aspect of him and a wonderful reason to pick him. With a movement of 5, he is also a bit faster than most of the cast. If you want him to get somewhere quickly, 2 points of energy will get him 5, 4 points will get him 10. And of course he has the standard 5 energy. On top of that, he has 4 health. So right now what you're looking at is a fairly robust character, just going off of those stats alone. When you go ahead and look at his defense, he has a green and a blue, so he is a very solid defender. He is a good person to be in the scrum, to be in the melee. When it comes to disengages, he gets an orange and he gets a blue. Now, this is a little unusual combination. Generally, oranges tend to favor more offensive roles. But there is some defense in there. On top of that, when you look at him, his disengage roll is an orange and a yellow. Orange, that's good, but the yellow, again, not necessarily an offensive die. So he's better, it's better than just a single die, but it's not as good as another of die of the same type. When we look at his character switch, if you have a block, you can trade that in for success to your roll against an adjacent target. Now that there's a little bit of a factor of that when you look at his disengage roll, because the yellow does have blocks, it does have successes. So again, it's pretty good when you, all things considered. It makes it a little more interesting with his brawl roll, since there you are really looking for shields. So I'm not saying it wouldn't come in use into some situation I can't necessarily foresee, but it would definitely be a situational. Now the next thing you'll want to look at with him is his attacks, or rather his attack that could double up. Ken no Sen is a 3 energy attack. It takes a red, an orange, and a blue die. So as we've discussed before, the red die is a fantastic offensive die. You have the chance of getting the critical success, basically something that cannot be defended against except with a critical block. So that's really good. Not all characters will have a green defensive dies, which really emphasizes the power of this attack. Next up, you have an orange die, another great offensive die, but on top of that, you will have a blue die. So there's a red, an orange, a blue. The blue comes into play 2 different ways. First off, it gives you a better chance of getting a block, so it is safer for him to attack than had it not been there. But if you're in a situation where you are fine exchanging damage or taking the damage, or there's no damage coming to you, you can use Musashi's character switch to change blocks into successes. Now this is a 1-1 range, so you don't necessarily get to do it outside of melee. You do need to get up in front, but once he's there, when you look at both his brawl roll, he's got a good chance of keeping you there. And when you look at Ken no Sen, when he's there, he has something to do to you very validly. Now the next thing to look about that Ken no Sen would be the switch. It has a shield, which again plays off the blue die, and it also has 2 exclamation points, or as Bonsai Zap likes to call them bangs, which is apparently is a programmer thing. I'm not a programmer. So after the resolution step of this attack, perform Ken no Sen without spending any action points. Now what's nice about this is it says you can perform it, you don't have to, and it doesn't limit you in the choice of characters you can do it against. So if you were going adjacent to 2 targets, you get your switch, you can do it on the same target you originally attacked, or you can choose another target. So this is a very nice character switch. So with the red not having so many of the exclamation marks, but the orange and the blue having a decent number, not horrible odds. I would do the math for you, but hey, we've got a video on the dice, so you can go ahead and take a look there. This also means that characters or tactics that offer up a yellow die become a lot more valuable for him. So for instance, if you have a focus card in hand, where you've got a very good chance of getting at least 1 exclamation point, 1 bang, possibly 2, that's a great add-on. Likewise, a character such as Lakshmi, when she uses her buff state and gives you focus, which gives you a yellow, then you know what, you cash that in and poof, you've got another yellow die. So you want to, if you have a character that gives yellows and you're like, well, what's the point of yellows? Musashi is a great person who loves yellows. If you can give him a yellow, he will love you forever, or at least until the next attack. Next up is his orange ability. He's a very simple character. He's very straightforward when you just look at him, but the options you get are amazing. And this is the one that really can make him scary. And it's Kaze Tachinu. So immediately after inflicting X many wounds, you may displace yourself X spaces. Now I've actually used this to some fun effect. So you go up to a character who is blocking your way, for instance, from the scoring zone. You have the chance to, you attack them, and you can use that to get a little bit more movement to get into the scoring zone or to another target. Or because it is displacing, so say you're up against Maximus, who is kind of hard to get around, or Gaia and all those annoying tentacles of her that she puts up, the damage from that lets you displace, thus skipping the disengage rolls. So he wants to be attacking is really what it comes down to. There was one game where I did 1 attack, I displaced myself, then I was able to get right next to Major Luna. Now in that instance, I did not have the Ken no Sen switch, which would have, after the resolution step of the attack, when everything's all said and done, and he would have been right next to her, if he had Ken no Sen, he could have attacked her right off, and that would have given me just an amazing first round. Instead, I had to settle for being right next to her and his relatively strong disengage there, meaning that she would have a hard time getting away from him, 1, but 2, also being that he was now immediately inside her minimum range. She could not attack him with her preferred attack. She would have to use Contender or something like that. And that particular player didn't have a Hexer on his team, so he could not do any movement shenanigans to get her to safety. She was in a bad spot, which is a good thing to put Luna in if she's on the opposing team. When it comes to tactics, of course, Musashi offers the standard 4 tactics that you'll get to choose from. So we're going to start off with Tsuchido. This is made before a roll, and you add 3 black dice. Now this is twofold here. First off, this will make anybody safer. Although each black die is basically a 50-50 chance of getting a block, your odds get better because there's 3 of them. You should really get it at least one. Two's not unlikely. If you get three, hey, good on you. So this can be used by any character on your team, and Musashi's not the only one that will make use of block symbols in their switches, for instance. Likewise, if you're in a bad situation, if you have to use Contender for some reason, this will help you mitigate the fact that Contender's lone orange die doesn't have much built-in defense to it. It's a very vulnerable attack. But in the case of Musashi, and actually, if you look at Valkyrie, they can exchange blocks, the shields, for successes. So although Valkyrie is not as generous, she requires 2 blocks per success. A block per success with Musashi is just amazing. It's probably among the reasons why there are a few folks who will kind of wonder, like, maybe he's a little overpowered. Is he not? Beats the heck out of me. I'm not really good at those choices, and the dice hate me, so I never really get the fullness of this. Now the next one, Mizudo, which is water something. I don't know what do means. During one of your character's activations, again, this is a great team card, gain 1 action point. Now this is obviously great for most characters if they're already positioned somewhere. So for instance, with Musashi, you could use this to get 6 action points, 6 energy. You can do his attack twice. And Kenosen twice means you've got a second chance at doing his switch. That's a lot of damage potential right there, just because you got 1 extra point. Likewise, a character such as, say, Hannibal, whose program strategy costs 3, well, him doing that twice and letting 2 of your characters do something as opposed to just once and not using his tactics card is really kind of awesome. So you're looking at that, and really, I mean, if you want to be real, someone like, say, Gata or Bixie, you can use that and extend their movement by a considerable amount. If you're using someone such as Maximus, you'll find ways to use that energy. It's a very powerful card and is a fantastic reason to include Musashi, because there's not a whole lot of characters that actually offer you that. Next up would be Sorado. This is before the critical block and switches of an opponent's roll. You can nullify one of the opponent's dice. This is essentially a critical block on a card. This is something you can use very strategically. Again, any character can use it. So again, Sarado, before the critical and switches of an opponent's roll, you can nullify one of the opponent's dice. So again, this is a critical block on a card. That is fantastic. If you've got a way to fish cards out of your discard, you can use that more than once. And that's actually going to be very important too, again, as a team card, when you're looking at characters that have relatively weak defenses. Or if you're going up against a character that has a very strong offense, when you see that red die, then you just take that out. If someone has a green die, you take it out. So, and because it's a tactics versus a roll, they can't start arguing. It's like, well, my green negates your green. And there's probably an order for that too. Next up would be Kazedo. So during Miyamoto's Musashi activation, this is the one card he has for himself. He gains 3 movement points. So this is very good. Again, if you just need that extra oomph, it's not quite as good as, say, being able to displace yourself, but still the fact that you can make that extra movement for free is quite valuable. So if you are short on energy, say you just came out of the infirmary, Musashi can still move and do an attack, or do a move and basically a move and a half. So this is very important. It will not work if he's immobilized, obviously. So we're looking at Musashi, and yeah, he's a straightforward character. I think he's fairly easy to understand, and once you get just a tiny bit deeper, he has a lot of options, and he's got a lot to offer his team. He's an excellent addition to really any team in a scenario that, you know, really rewards getting frags. But the way he can threaten areas and kind of keep you there is very important as well. If you can keep someone intimidated, for instance, that's great. If you want to put on pressure, that's wonderful. If you have to use him with contender for some awful reason, his switch means any defensive roles you have, whether it's, say, dodge, or if you're using his own Tsuchido, all those can make that a much more viable attack. And just that fact alone would surprise people to begin with, because you know, it's like, oh, well, you know, you can't get to me for melee because reasons. You're immobilized, for instance, then you just, I don't know if he's throwing a big shuriken, maybe it's a senbei, he yells harsh language at you, but he would still, if he's got the line of sight still and they're in range, he can still be something to be reckoned with. If you add in a character that can give him a buff when he's in melee range, you just make him more of a monster. And it really doesn't seem to matter what buffs you throw at him. So if you could throw a damage buff on him with Take Aim, for instance, or with Hannibal, the orange, well, he's going to love that. That's more successes. If you give him a defensive buff, he's going to love that. It keeps him safer, and it also gives him fuel for his switch. Plus, on top of that, Ken no Sen switch has a requirement of 1 block. If you can throw a yellow on him, whether it's from focus or if you're using Lakshmi or someone like that, then he has an increased chance of getting his switch. He's a great team player. Adding that 3 of his 4 tactics cards are, again, very team friendly, and you've got a wonderful addition to, well, your team. So that's it for this week. Let us know in the comments who you would like to see next week. We're going to go ahead and just remind you to like, comment, subscribe. We've got other playlists here on Shameless Mayhem, ranging from VR to Aristeia full play games. And we'll see you next time.